Page 80, Chapter 4, Lord of the Flies. Page 80. Now then, what's your name? The small boy twisted away into his tent. Piggy turned helplessly to Ralph, who spoke sharply. What's your name? Tormented by the silence and the refusal, the assembly broke into a chant. What's your name? What's your name? Quiet! Ralph peered at the child in the twilight. Now tell us, what's your name? Percival Weemus Madison. The Vicarage, Harcourt, St. Anthony. Hans, telephone. As if this information was rooted far down in the springs of sorrow, the Lidlin wept. His face puckered, the tears leapt from his eyes, his mouth opened till they could see a square black hole. At first he was a silent effigy of sorrow, but then the lamentation rose out of him, loud and sustained as the conch. Shut up, you! Shut up! Percival Weemus Madison would not shut up. A spring had been tapped, far beyond the reach of authority or even physical intimidation. The crying went on, breath after breath, and seemed to sustain him upright, as if he were nailed to it. Shut up! Shut up! You ever told a kid to shut up when they're crying? I have. For now, the Lidlins were no longer silent. They were reminded of their personal sorrows, and perhaps felt themselves to share in a sorrow that was universal. They began to cry in symphony, two of them almost as loud as Percival. Maurice saved them. He cried out, Look at me! He pretended to fall over. He rubbed his rump and sat on the twister so that he fell in the grass. He clowned badly, but Percival and the others noticed and sniffed and laughed. Presently, they were all laughing so absurdly that the Biggins joined in. Jack was the first to make himself heard. He had not got the conch and thus spoke against the rules, but nobody minded. And what about the beast? Something strange was happening to Percival. He yawned and staggered so that Jack seized and shook him. Where does the beast live? Percival sagged in Jack's grip. That's a clever beast, said Piggy, jeering. If it can hide on this island. Jack's been everywhere. Where could a beast live? Beast my foot! Percival muttered something and the assembly laughed again. Ralph leaned forward. What does he say? Jack listened to Percival's answer and then let go of him. Percival, released, surrounded by the comfortable presence of humans, fell in the long grass and went to sleep. Jack cleared his throat, then reported casually. He says the beast comes out of the sea. The last laugh died away. Ralph turned involuntarily a black, humped figure against the lagoon. The assembly looked with him, considered the vast stretches of water, the high sea beyond, unknown indigo blue of infinite possibility, heard silently the sough and whisper from the reef. Maurice spoke so loudly that they jumped. Daddy said they haven't found all the animals in the sea yet. Argument started again. Ralph held out the glittering conch, and Maurice took it obediently. The meeting subsided. I mean, when Jack says you can't be frightened because people are frightened anyway, that's all right. But when he says there's only pigs on this island, I expect he's right. But he doesn't know, not really, not certainly, I mean. Maurice took a breath. My daddy says there's things, what do you call them, that make ink, squids that are hundreds of yards long and eat whales whole. He paused again and laughed gaily. I mean, I don't believe in a beast, of course. As Piggy says, life's scientific. But we don't know, do we? Not certainly, I mean. Someone shouted, a squid could come up out of the water. Could? Couldn't? In the moment, the platform was full of arguing, gesticulating shadows. To Ralph seated, this seemed the breaking up of sanity. Fear, beasts, no general agreement that the fire was all important. And when one tried to get the thing straight, the argument sheared off, bringing up fresh, unpleasant matter. He could see a whiteness in the gloom near him, so he grabbed it from Maurice and blew as loudly as he could. I'm getting worse at it, not better. The assembly was shocked into silence. Simon was close to him, laying hands on the conch. Simon felt a perilous necessity to speak, but to speak in assembly was a terrible thing to him. I think Simon has anxiety, guys. So you'll see, if you search on the internet will give you theories that each of these characters represent a psychological dilemma or a mental issue.
Oh, that makes so much sense. That's cool. Now that you say that, I see that. So, like especially for Piggy. Yeah.
Spoiler, maybe, he said hesitantly, maybe there is a beast. The assembly cried out savagely, and Ralph stood up in amazement. You, Simon? You believe in this? I don't know, said Simon. His heartbeats were choking him. But, see, heartbeats choking you, that's anxiety. The storm broke. Sit down. Shut up. Take the conch. Sod you. Shut up, Ralph shouted. Hear him. He's got the conch. What I mean is, maybe it's only us. Nuts. That was from Piggy, shocked out of decorum. Simon went on. We could be sort of. Simon became inarticulate in his effort to express mankind's essential illness. Inspiration came to him. What's the dirtiest thing there is? As an answer, Jack dropped into the uncomprehending silence that followed it. The one crude, expressive syllable released was immense. Those little ones who had climbed back onto the twister fell off again and did not mind. The hunters were screaming with delight. Simon's effort fell about him in ruins. The laughter beat him cruelly, and he shrank away, defenseless, to his seat. So what was Simon saying? He was saying the fear in our minds is so out of control that we are creating things to fear. That kind of like what Franklin Roosevelt said in his inaugural address. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. At last, the assembly was silent again. Simon spoke out of turn. Someone spoke out of turn. Maybe he means it's some sort of ghost. Ralph lifted the conch and peered into the gloom. The lightest thing was the pale beach. Surely the little ones were nearer. Yes, there was no doubt about it. They were huddled into a tight knot of bodies in the central grass. A flurry of wind made the palms talk, and the noise seemed very loud now that darkness and silence made it so noticeable. Two gray trunks rubbed each other with an evil squeaking that no one had noticed by day. Piggy took the conch out of his hands. His voice was indignant. I don't believe in no ghosts, ever. Jack was up too, unaccountably angry. Who cares what you believe, fatty? I got the conch. There was the sound of a brief tussle, and the conch moved to and fro. You give me the conch back. Ralph pushed between them and got a thump on the chest. He wrested the conch from someone and sat down breathlessly. There's too much talk about ghosts. We ought to have left all this for daylight. A hushed and anonymous voice broke in. Perhaps that's what the beast is, a ghost. The assembly was shaken as by wind. There's too much talking out of turn, Ralph said, because we can't have proper assemblies if you don't stick to the rules. He stopped again. The careful plan of this assembly had broken down. What'd you want me to say then? I was wrong to call this assembly so late? We'll have a vote on them, on ghosts, I mean, and then go to the shelters because we're all tired. No, Jack is it. Wait a minute. I'll say here, and now that I don't believe in ghosts, or I don't think I do, but I don't like the thought of them. Now, not now, that is, in the dark. But we were going to decide what's what. He raised the conch for a moment. Very well, then. I suppose that's what it is, whether there are ghosts or not. He thought for a moment, formulating the question. Who thinks there may be ghosts? For a long time there was silence and no apparent movement. Then Ralph appeared into the gloom and made out his hands. He spoke flatly. I see. The world, that understandable and lawful world, was slipping away. Once there was this and that, and now, and the ship had gone. The conch was snatched from his hands, and Piggy's voice shrilled. I didn't vote for no ghosts. He whirled round on the assembly. Remember that, all of you. They heard him stamp. What are we, humans or animals or savages? What's grown-ups gonna think? Going off, hunting pigs, letting fires out, and now? A shadow fronted him tempestuously. You shut up, you fat slug! There was a moment's struggle, and the glimmering conch jigged up and down. Ralph leapt to his feet. Jack, you haven't got the conch. Let him speak. Jack's face swam near him. And you shut up. Who are you anyway? Sitting there telling people what to do? You can't hunt. You can't sing. I'm chief. I was chosen. Why should choosing make any difference? Just giving orders that don't make any sense. Pig's got the conch. That's right. Favor Piggy as you always do. Jack. Jack's voice sounded in bitter mimicry. Jack. The rules, shouted Ralph. You're breaking the rules. Who cares? The rules. Ralph summoned his wits. Because the rules are the only thing we've got. Ooh, I love that line. The only thing we've got are rules. But Jack was shouting against him, bullocks to the rules. So if you were in high school in England right now and you said bullocks, you'd be getting suspended. Same with bloody, just like the F word. Bullocks to the rules. We're strong, we hunt. If there's a beast, we'll hunt it down. We'll close in and beat. He gave a wild whoop and leapt down to the pale sand. At once the platform was full of noise and excitement, scrambling, screams, and laughter. The assembly shredded away and became a discursive and random scatter from the palms to the water and away along the beach, beyond night sight. Ralph found his cheek touching the conch and took it from Piggy. What's grown-ups gonna say? Cried Piggy again. Look at him. The sound of mock hunting, hysterical laughter, and real terror came from the beach. Blow the conch, Ralph! Piggy was so close that Ralph could see the glint of his one glass. There's the fire. Can't they see? You got to be tough now. Make 'em do what you want, Ralph answered in the cautious voice of one who rehearses a theorem. If I blow the conch and they don't come back, then we've had it. We shan't keep the fire going. We'll be like animals. We'll never be rescued. Yeah, if you use that power one too many times and it backfires, you're toast. The dispersed figures had come together on the sand and were a dense black mass that revolved. They were chanting something, and little ones that had had enough were staggering away, howling. Ralph raised the conch to his lips and then lowered it. The trouble is, are there ghosts, Piggy, or beasts? Of course there aren't. Why not? 'Cause things wouldn't make sense. Houses and streets and TV, they wouldn't work. The dancing, chanting boys had worked themselves away till their sound was nothing but a wordless rhythm. But suppose they don't make sense. Not here on this island. Supposing things are watching us and waiting. Ralph shuddered violently and moved closer to Piggy so that they bumped frighteningly. You stop talking like that. We got enough trouble, Ralph, and I've had as much as I can stand. If there is ghosts, I ought to give up being chief. Hear 'em. Oh, Lord. Oh, no. Piggy gripped Ralph's arms. If Jack was chief, he'd have all hunting and no fire. We'd be here till we died. His voice ran up to a squeak. Who's that sitting there? Me, Simon. Fat lot of good we are, said Ralph. 3 blind mice? I'll give up. If you give up, said Piggy in an appalled whisper, what'd happen to me? Nothing. He hates me. I don't know why. If he could do what he wanted, you're all right. He respects you. Besides, you'd hit him. You were having a nice fight with him just now. I had the conch, said Piggy simply. I had a right to speak. Simon stirred in the dark. Go on being chief. You shut up, young Simon. Why couldn't you say there wasn't a beast? I'm scared of him, said Piggy, and that's why I know him. Ooh. Listen to this part. If you're scared of someone, you hate him, but you can't stop thinking about him. You kid yourself he's all right, really, and then when you see him again, it's like asthma, and you can't breathe. I tell you what, he hates you too, Ralph. Yeah, I remember feeling like that. Like telling myself, the bully is actually just joking around with me. The bully's like wants to be my friend, but doesn't know how, like the counselor and the teacher would tell me. They want to be your friend. They like you. They just don't know how. And so I would think the bully just wants to be my friend but doesn't know how to be my friend. But then I would constantly think of the bully. I could never stop thinking about him. If I went to the bathroom in class, I would first think, what bathroom is going to be furthest away from where the bully might be? His name was Bastion. Chris Bastion. Me? Why me? I don't know. You got him over the fire, and you're chief, and he isn't. But he's Jack Meridew. I've been in bed so much I've done some thinking. I know about people. I know about me and him. He can't hurt you, but if you stand out of the way, he'd hurt the next thing, and that's me. Piggy's right, Ralph. There's you and Jack. Go on being chief, Simon said. We're all drifting, and things are gone rotten. At home, there was always a grown-up. Please, sir. Please, miss. And then you got an answer. How I wish my auntie was here. I wish my father. Oh, what's the use? Keep the fire going? The dance was over, and the hunters were going back to the shelters. Grown-ups know things, said Piggy. They ain't afraid of the dark. They'd meet and have tea and discuss. Then things would be all right. They wouldn't set a fire to the island or lose. They'd build a ship. The three boys stood in the darkness, striving unsuccessfully to convey the majesty of adult life. They wouldn't quarrel or break my specs or talk about a beast. If only they could get a message to us, cried Ralph desperately. If only they could send us something grown up, a sign or something. A thin wail out of the darkness chilled them and set them grabbing for each other. Then the wail rose, remote and unearthly, and turned to an inarticulate gibbering. Percival Wemyss Madison, of Vicarage, Harcourt, St. Anthony, lying in the long grass, was living through circumstances in which the incantation of his address was powerless to help him. So the incantation, remember I've told you this is like 19th grade reading level? Incantation, that's what the pastor, the priest, or the imam, or the rabbi, that's their first speech after the songs, is the incantation, where they tell you what they're going to talk about today. And Percival's so young that he's just repeating his address and his phone number in his head to make him feel like he's home.